Good morning, Journey, and welcome to your Midweek Connection. If you haven't met me before, my name is Luke Mornian, and I'm one of the elders here at Journey. I'm going to get personal and share a private struggle with you all this morning. My hope and my prayer is that God will use this to encourage those of you who need it. But before we dive into the Word, I just want to remind everyone that baptisms are happening this Sunday. So if you feel like the Lord is leading you to be baptized, don't worry, there's still time. You can meet with one of our pastors. Just give the church office a call. We would love to celebrate this important milestone with you. The recent sermon series from 1 Corinthians chapter 13 was all about love. Learning how to love like Jesus, learning to love better, love more completely, and learning that love is really all that matters in the end. If I were to summarize the whole chapter in just a few words, it would be, if we do not have love, we have nothing. But let's face it, sometimes we're just not very loving people. Speaking personally, there are times when I might be in a bad mood. There are times when people push my buttons the wrong way. And there are times when the people in my path are just people that I find it very difficult to love. In these situations, I can react abruptly. And my reactions are not a reflection of someone who loves like Jesus. If you recall, one of the things we talked about during the Corinthians sermon series was the difference between a reaction and a response. Reactions are driven by emotions, and they can get us in trouble. When we are reactive rather than responsive, we wield a relational flamethrower instead of a relational fire extinguisher. Responses are more thoughtful, and they take into consideration the desired outcome for the situation. When we respond rather than react, we have an opportunity to inject God's love into that situation. 2 Corinthians 13:4 says, in part, love is patient, love is kind. One way I can react, and this happens more often than I like to admit, is by judging those around me. This is the opposite of being patient and kind. And it isn't something I want to do, but it happens anyway. So this has been bugging me, and I've been thinking about it a lot over the last several weeks. If I'm called to love like Jesus, but I am imperfect, how do I overcome my tendency to react with judgment? Luckily for me, the same time I've been struggling with this dilemma, my D group was reading through the book of James. And James in chapter 2 talks about judging others. He's warning the church in Jerusalem that showing favoritism to certain people is the same thing as becoming judges with evil thoughts. James talks about how when we treat someone differently because they're well-dressed or highly educated or because they have more money, we're judging them because we might think they have more to offer us. And conversely, when we treat someone differently because they have shabby clothes, less money, or lack of formal education, we are judging that they might have less to offer us. Passing judgment in either one of these ways is wrong. Our goal in both situations should be to respond in a way that produces the desired outcome of showing God's love and ultimately builds relationships with Jesus. James goes on to offer us a different path in chapter 2 in verses 12 and 13. Speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy triumphs over judgment. Mercy sounds a lot like the patience and kindness that Paul spoke of when addressing the church in Corinth. Mercy sounds a lot like Jesus dying for me on the cross. Mercy sounds remarkably similar to the gift of grace, which none of us deserved and none of us could ever earn. So what do I do with the advice that James and Paul both offer? Maybe I can't change my reactions immediately. I'll probably continue to have those internal conversations where I pass judgment. But what I can do is choose to keep those conversations internal and choose to take a different course of action. I can choose to pray for someone who is obviously going through a difficult situation in their life, rather than assuming that their circumstances might be the result of their decisions. Instead of being jealous, I can choose to celebrate someone's achievements and pray that they would give God all the glory for their success. And I can be confident that over time, God will change my heart, and my choice to respond will eventually become my reaction. How do I know this? Because God has promised me that nothing is impossible for him. Jesus gave us the gift of the Holy Spirit, and as Paul wrote in Romans 5:1, those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. Journey, be led by the Spirit this week. Let your responses be those of one who knows they are a child of God. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.